Hey, so this is gonna be a less happy and upbeat video than usual. There may be some sass. So this is gonna be a 2-book review video about the books that I haven't told you about yet that I read during Indiecember. And I'm doing it not in December because one of them I tried really hard to finish, but I could not finish it during Indiecember because it was just so difficult to read. It was so boring, but I wanted it to not be boring, so I tried really hard. So I didn't just DNF it nearly as soon as I should have. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about Indiecember in general and how I felt about it and how it went and as far as the whole event is concerned. So let's start with the 3-star book. It's always nice to start out on a slightly more positive note. This is The Colors of Fear by Hannah Heath. She's an author that I found her on some social media or other, and I followed her blog for a while. She does a lot of really good writing advice that I like. This was one of her, I'd call it a novella. It was about 80 pages, maybe novella / short story. She called it a short story, I think, but nobody calls anything novellas that are novellas, because novellas don't sell, unless they're romances. So this book is about elves who live in the desert, as you can guess by the dunes being on the cover. I had no idea what the heck the title meant. It seemed kind of a weird one, except that it is actually very applicable to the story because the main character is somebody who sees colors kind of like auras, but not exactly. He sees people's emotions, including his own, as floaty, fluttery colors, kind of like is depicted on the cover in the sky here. He got this sensitivity after becoming sick with and then recovering from a deadly illness that most people in his society never recover from, and that his little brother is now suffering under. It seems to be a wasting sort of sickness that makes a person very weak and unable to retain their body weight and have difficulty breathing, etc. And this illness, I believe, is related to the overall badness that is over the heads of our characters and their society, which is there's an evil sorcerer out there who wants to conquer and murder everybody, and these elves are part of a group that is resisting him. So they gather warriors from their people and send them off to fight this guy, and most of them die. 3 out of 5 of the more elite warriors die, and 4 out of 5 of the more foot soldier types die. So a lot of people feel like they're doomed from the start when they're born into this society, and they want to fight because they're in big trouble anyway, but they're also scared of being chosen to go and fight because they're probably gonna die faster that way. But our main character wants to do his part, so he is going through some trials to try to be picked to be one of the more elite warriors, and so most of the story is about him training to do this course. Kind of like that thing in Kung Fu Panda where you would move through it and there's all these things attacking you and you avoid them and go through them and kick them and stuff. So there are some very interesting parts of this book. I really like the magical power of the scene of the colors and stuff and how that came to be. I really like when people get magical powers for an unknown reason and they're weird powers nobody else has. And there's other magic in the world, but this is a different kind. I really like that. And it's a cool concept that I don't feel has been particularly overdone. The characters were fairly realistic and relatable. I really felt like you felt attached to the main character fairly quickly and also cared about his family, and you could see that he cared about his family, and they were very much a unit. Sometimes the dialogue was a little bit stilted, a little bit artificial, in that it was trying to be fun and casual, but the author wasn't sure how to do it. Still overall enjoyable. My biggest complaint for this story is that, one, we didn't really have enough information about the background as far as everything that's going on, but that may be because this is sort of a supplemental or prequel type of a story to a main book that has more information. And also, the plot was odd in that nothing seemed to have changed from the beginning to the end. The main character, it seemed for a bit like he was going to start off on a new journey and things were going to be different, but then he didn't. He just went back and did the same thing that he had been doing before, so the plot feels like it doesn't go anywhere. But I expect that her full-length novels are much more pushing forward and having things happen that change things. So that's why that one ended up with 3 stars. And I don't usually do a star rating, except that for Indiecember. We are reviewing them on Amazon or Goodreads, and of course those have star ratings out of 5. Then there's this other book that I told you I was reading, and that I told you in my last book video that I was having a hard time getting through, and my cat actually picked for me to work on this one before I finished my other in-progress read that's taken a long time, which is Space Opera. This one, Masters of Deception by J.C. King, I was really excited about because I found it on my Kindle, already bought. I assume my brother bought it. He's the sort who would buy that kind of book. Because the other way that I have lots of books on my Kindle that I haven't read yet are I get them free when authors are doing a promotion to try to get their book out there and get people to review it. So it has really lovely cover, as you've seen. I actually looked up the author and found his Patreon page where he explained where he got his ideas, and he was someone who built worlds to play D&D with his friends, and so when he grew up he took those worlds and changed them quite a bit because they didn't make much sense, and made them make more sense, but he also had the core concept of it being a very D&D type world where you could have adventures in it, and all these weird cultures and countries and magic systems would make for an interesting game. And one problem that I found with a lot of indie books is that the worlds are severely underdeveloped, or they don't make sense. So I was really hopeful that this one would be good because of that. And also from listening to the Patreon video, I learned that the author has a really good sense of humor. He made me laugh quite a bit. So I started reading, and there seemed to be a lot of really great ideas about magic and stuff, and the writing itself, like the prose, as in how things are worded, and the flow of sentences seemed really good, which is another thing that tends to lack a lot in indie books. So he either had a good editor or was just very good at getting words right so that they don't sound awkward. Then I noticed a couple of things. One that I noticed more slowly is that I really was not getting attached to any of the characters, and there are about 4 or 5 different perspective characters, which I don't mind at all. I actually do that in my own books. I really like it because then you have a greater chance of liking at least one of the characters if the others aren't to your taste. But I didn't like any of them. They were all either the one who was nice was very boring and kind of stupid, and all the others were just irritating / unlikable. But it took me longer to notice that. The thing that I noticed right away is that every 2 pages at least, the characters are thinking a lot about sex. Like, not necessarily, not graphically, but like just they're having this whole thought about, if I have sex with this person, or because I had sex with this person, I'll get their magical powers, which that's a thing that happens in this world, which is fine, but like they think about it a lot. There's 2 male perspective characters, and one of them's just very lecherous and just goes around thinking about how he could possibly score with these various different women instead of thinking about anything useful. And then another perspective character, who's a lady, is thinking quite often about this guy that she's been having sex with lately and how sexy he is. And her, even when she's not thinking about having sex with someone else, we see from her perspective her thinking about women's boobs. Now she wished she had bigger boobs. And once, when we're in her perspective, she's having a conversation with some prostitutes and she flips them a coin and one of them catches it between her boobs. Like, that would be remotely efficient, or I don't even know why that happened. And that was about the last straw for me, actually. That was close to page 100, which is where I quit. That was 20% of the book, so there's about 500 pages in the book, and at that point, having no attachment to any of the characters, which basically is what makes me read a book, is because I care about the characters, and the plot being so slow to progress, in 100 pages we had gotten very little done. Plus those 2 factors, plus the sex everywhere, I finally decided to DNF the book. Usually I DNF a lot faster, but there were just so many things going for this book. All the background and the world building and the decent writing. Like, I really wanted this book to be good, and I wanted to enjoy it and be able to recommend it to you. So I went longer than usual, so I ended up more frustrated than usual. So that's how my Indiecember went. That's great. And then I kind of misunderstood how the Indiecember winning prize thing would go, because there were so many people donating prizes that I thought they would be distributed so that there were like 1 or 2 books to each person and like a couple of big prizes for the top tiers. But there ended up being only 14 prizes that just had a lot of books and things in them, so there were less to go around. There were 28 entrants apparently, and so we had a 50-50 chance of winning, but I thought that everybody would get something. It wasn't discussed very much beforehand how the prize things would be divided up, so if I had known basically that it was going to be a drawing that a lot of people wouldn't win anything, I wouldn't have put in the effort to fill out the bingo squares. I still would have done Indiecember, and so I still am planning to do Indiecember next year, but I just wouldn't have followed the bingo board and I would have just read books that I already had for free that just didn't make bingo. So that's what I'm going to do next year. But I wanted to let you know how those last couple of books turned out because I had told you I was going to read them. So thank you for watching. I'll be seeing you in the next video, which is going to be a haul of these here books that I'm about to film. So I'll be seeing you then. Bye!